Hi friends, it's Becky, and today I'm going to be making a necklace and some earrings using the new Chateau in Bloom Sam's bead box. You probably already watched my unboxing of that today, but now it's time for me to make some stuff with it. I'm really excited about it because this is such a really soft, romantic palette, but it's not like overly pink. It's really soft pinks, which if you know me, you know I do love me some overly pink things. I'm not afraid of pink. Pink is one of those colors that I'm just like, yes, I will have some of that. But the light soft pinks that came with this, and the really gentle colors that are like early spring blooms, it's just a really, really lovely color palette to use. And so I wanted to go ahead and make with that. And I pulled out a couple of SilverSilk chains from my stash, and I'll show those to you in a minute, and I thought would be a really great accompaniment to it. Some of the beads that I'm using is I'm going to be using these kind of longer, like they're a peridot, kind of a golden color with the copper wash, or is that gold wash? I can't tell. And then we've got some of these flowers with the 4 petals, quatrefoils I think is what they're called. And then we've got our grape leaves, and I'm going to be using those. I'm also going to be using one of these table cut butterflies and a whole bunch. I made just a big mess of drops using these trumpet flowers and a druck, and I used a gold ball head pin for each of those drops, and I'll demonstrate how I made those drops in a minute, right before we make our focal for the necklace. Let me go over the other materials that I'm using. Because I'm using 2 different chains with the SilverSilk chains, I have a double connector SilverSilk finding that I can attach a clasp to. Did I pull out the clasp from here? Am I going to use that one? I think I'm going to use that one. Actually, let's get that out. So I can attach the clasp to that. And one of these is just going to be the plain chain without anything connected to it. And then the other one is going to be connected using the single connector findings to some strung beads strung on the Soft Flex champagne. I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes to crimp that, and my magical crimper. And also I'm going to be using this 20 gauge gold colored wire to do some wire wrapping for my focal and for the earrings that I'm going to be making. And I think that's everything that I'm using here. I've got my regular tools that I use when I do any sort of wire wrapping. That is my chain nose pliers, my round nose pliers, and my flush cutters. So I think that's all. That's everything for that. So let me show you the SilverSilk. And these are not, I don't think they're available for purchase right now. There are some of those custom one-off SilverSilk chains that they're in my stash. Actually, this one was a new addition to my stash. Let me tell you, it is a gray pipe. It's just a little rubber pipe because it's a pearlesque pipe chain with a purple tinsel over the gray, and then this rose gold pink chain around the outside, so it gives you that really lovely pink color with that. And this actually came in a little baggie of extra pieces of chain. In my last order, I had ordered a TGBE kit, which I'm excited to make tomorrow with Neelay's presentation. But it's just one of those things that sometimes he does this where he'll put, you know, some of his extras, some of the chain that he can't really sell because it's got a little discoloration, but that's okay because you can cut it off. Or it's something that he was testing out. And so it came in this little baggie with this, and sometimes he'll toss that into your orders. It doesn't happen on every order. In fact, it's been a while since I got one, so I was really happy to see it. It was really fun. But he actually has some grab bags for sale on his website right now. I'll put a link to that in the description below. And you never know, you might get one of these in there. It's entirely possible. But then this other one is some pearlesque chain. But again, it's not available on the site. I think it was a one-off, or it's something that was in a pop-up shop that I got, and then it's, you know, the pop-up shops are for special chains that maybe aren't going to be in production all the time. And it is a gold ball chain with this kind of iridescent tinsel where you can see these little pops of green color through it. Do you see that? And then you've got the gold wire along the outside of it, and that's why I think this will go great with this, because it's got the gold and it's got the green, and then we've got our pinks over here with this one, and it just all goes really well together. So I am not mad about that. That's going to be actually really good. So I'm going to start it off by just matching up. Oh no, the first thing I'm going to do is cut this pipe chain in half. Now pipe chain, you can, it's hollow on the inside, so you can put memory wire through it. You can cut it into sections and use them as kind of long beads or tubes or spacers. You can put craft wire through it and bend it around into different shapes, and I actually have several tutorials where I've done that with the pipe chain. Or you can string beading wire through it and have it be done that way. But I'm going to treat it just like the capture chain or just like the leather chain, and I'm just going to be attaching it to my connectors. So I'm going to find the middle of this because it's the part that I'm going to be attaching my strung portion of my necklace to. So I just want to cut that right down the middle, right there. All right. And now the first part of this necklace is going to be putting both of these into the double connector pieces. And it's got this little lip inside that when you close it, it's going to chomp down on whatever you put into it. So you don't have to use glue, but it needs to be a little bit wider so that the both of these will fit in there better. So I'm just going to stick this in here and widen it. I want, if the SS is facing front, I want the pearlesque chain on that side, and I want the pearlesque pipe chain on this side. And the pipe chain is a little bit thicker, you can see. And that's why I had to expand that and widen it, was so that I could get it as far in there as possible. And I'm just kind of shoving with my fingernail to keep that wire from poking out the side. It'll be fine. And now I need my pliers to close it. I usually like using my wide mouth pliers for these, but they're not handy right now. So let's just go ahead and use that. I'm just going to give it a little tug, whoop, and it is not secure in there. This one is, but this one isn't, so I'm going to need to start that again. There we go. I'm just going to clip this to make sure that it's at a good point for being in there. I want to get rid of my extra wires. There you go. I want to get that in there so that at least 2 of the balls are inside of there. And then crimp it down. I'm going to crimp it again on this side, because I think what happened was that I crimped it down on the side with the pipe chain, but not as much on the other side. So it just didn't grab on like I was expecting to. And there it is. It's good. All right. So now let's do the other side. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Make sure this is good. It's kind of curved, so I'm going to try and keep it curved that same direction. It's possible that I might need to cut a little bit of this off. But when we get to that part, we'll get to that part. Okay. This needs more widening. So I'm just going to start with this, and then we'll make the focal. Sorry, I had to concentrate so there wasn't any talking going on. Nope, try it again. Okay. 2 balls in. That's why you always do the tug test. I think I might need to cut a little bit of that off in order for it to stay in better. All right. If all else fails, I can go grab the glue. That is something I can definitely do. Sometimes what it is that the little lip on the inside that's supposed to catch these little balls, sometimes there's an extra layer of things between the ball where the lip is supposed to go. And so I'm just using my fingernails to make an indent around this part so that when I put it in there, again, that lip on the inside will catch on and hold it. And I need to really widen this. I really hope I'm not ruining this. I mean, the fact that it's opened and closed so many times, maybe that'll tell you that's what kind of quality it is, you know? The fact that it has not broken yet. All right. One more time. once more with feeling. I think it needs to be open just a little bit more because it's not going all the way back there. And to open it, I'm just putting my pliers into it and kind of widening it with my fingers. All right. Let's go all the way in. All right, buddy. It worked on the other side. Okay, it's in. All right, so this will be the beginning of it. And I'm thinking that I'm going to see how long the strung part is and figure out where I need to attach it to here. And then I'll just cut this off, and then I'll have some extra pipe chain that I can use in other designs, or maybe for some earrings or something later. So I'm going to move that out of the way. And let's get some of my 20 gauge craft wire off here. And I'm just going to make a little link that has loops on either end. So I'm going to start with our little butterfly. I'm going to pop one of these little 4mm duotone drucks on there. I'm going to be using these as spacers for most of the necklace design. So I've got that guy there. And I'm going to put this one right up above it. You know, I probably should have checked to make sure that I know where the holes are on this. My brain was like, oh, it's in here. No, it isn't, silly. It's there. That's where that goes. All right. So let's make a loop up here at the top. And it doesn't actually matter which way that's facing, but I'm going to bend it back and then pull it over the top of my round nose pliers, and then bring it around to the other side so that I've got a loop that's mostly centered. It's not completely centered, so I'm just going to twist that over and get that loop wrapped. I'm using my finger and I'm just pushing it around the wire, and I'm just going to do this a couple of times. It doesn't need to be a really thick wrap. I just want enough of a wrap that it's not going to go anywhere. So let's get that on there. And this is why I like to work off the spool when I'm making wrapped loops. It's because now I can push these beads up here and measure about 3 fingers down from there to cut off the rest of my wire. And I'm just going to make another wrapped loop right here at the bottom of the, you know what? I'm going to put one of these guys down here just so that I'm not having to maneuver around the bottom of the butterfly things on that shaped bead while I'm doing my wrapping, because oh boy, that would sure be fun. It doesn't really matter which direction these wraps are facing, because we're going to be attaching some dangles to this, and all we need is a loop. So I'm just going to grasp that right there, bend over the top of it. You don't have to bend over as far as that. I just want to leave a little bit of space between the bead and where I bent it so that I have room for wrapping. Then I'm going to take my round nose pliers right there and push that wire around, rotate it, and keep going around. So I've got a nice round loop right there over the wire. And now that that's there, just going to use my finger and wrap that wire around till it gets to the bead. And it doesn't matter which way the loops are going with this. They can be perpendicular, they can be parallel. Ultimately, it won't really matter. But now I've got the start for my focal. The rest of it, I forgot to mention something else that I'm going to be using with this, and that is some jump rings. So let me pull some of these guys out, because they are going to be an important part of our cluster that I'm going to make with these dangles. Now I've got 8 dangles, which is actually a lie because this is 7, but I'm going to make my 8th one with y'all so you can see how I made these other ones. It was just one of those things where I was making a bunch of them and just kind of relaxing, doing a whole bunch of things all in a row, you know, repetitive motions, zoning out, having a nice relaxing time at the end of the day to just do a few beady things. So I start with my head pin and I put this direct bead down first, and then we've got our little blossom flower, and I'm going to be putting that down with the wide part facing towards that druck and the narrow part facing up to where my my loop is going to be. And then right here at the top, I'm going to grasp the wire, push it over the top, just like I did with the other. And then I'm going to push this around, have it come all the way around. And I actually found it easier with this particular wire because it's kind of a soft but springy wire. It's weird, but that's just the type of wire it is. It's a little bit easier for me to go ahead and use these pliers to pull the wire around the core than it is to use my fingers like with the other wire that I was using. So I'm just going to wrap this around. Bloop, 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 bloop. Pretty sure I can do this. I did it like 17 times before this, but I also wasn't on camera. You guys ever do that where like it works just fine like the billion times you do it, but then as soon as you go to like show somebody else, suddenly you don't know how. Your fingers aren't working right. Everything drops. So that happens to me. All right. So now that we've got our drops, I'm just going to build myself a little cluster by opening my jump rings. Grab those pliers that I just set aside so I can twist open my jump ring like that. I'm just going to stick 2 drops on here. I've got 8, so I'm going to be making 4 levels or 4 sections of this. Close that up, and then I've got a drop, a jump ring, and a drop right there. And I'm going to pick up another jump ring. Open that up. Put on 1 drop, the jump ring from the previous little level that I made, and then another drop. So it goes jump ring, or drop, jump ring, drop each time you do this. And you're just going to put it through the jump ring of the previous one. So now I've got this guy right there. Next one. Actually, I don't like that jump ring. This is going to be a better jump ring for me. You can be picky about your jump rings. You're allowed to do that, you know. Where are you going, buddy? I'm going to scooch in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. All right, got my jump ring open. Gonna put a drop on there. And then I'm going to put this jump ring on that one that I just opened. And then another drop. Boop, boop, boop. It's pretty easy making these clusters and dangles if you don't mind making drops. Like, that's the fiddliest part, is making those drops. And I'm just going to spread these out so you can see a little closer to like the anatomy of a cluster, how that works. You've got all those jump rings connected to each other, and then you've got drops connected to those. All right, one more. This one is going to be extra special because it's the last one. So I'm going to swing it open like that. Put on one drop. Put on this jump ring from the previous bit so my cluster is connected. I'm going to put on another drop, and before I close it, I'm going to attach it to the bottom of my little focal that I'm making. And now I can close it. Make sure that jump ring's nice and closed. Ta-da! It's gonna be all jangly and dangly. We love a good jangle dangle, don't we? Why am I the way I am? I don't know. I'm gonna keep some of these for the clusters that I make for the earrings, because I'm gonna do a cluster just like this for my earrings. And I'm also going to use them to attach my closure for my necklace. So I set those aside, and now we can start stringing the necklace. Let me grab some of this wire, and I think I've got like 2 different lengths of wire on here. That one's a little bit kinked, so this is much smoother, and I think this is gonna do just fine. All right. Pretty sure I had it this way when I was planning it, like that. Okay. And then these dress as spacers, so let's grab one of these, put it on the wire, and try to remember which way the holes go on these guys. Because, oh boy, I thought it was in the middle. Just goes to show you can't always make assumptions. Right. So I was thinking about doing this as a beaded chain necklace, but I'm feeling the stringing a little bit more tonight. I think doing the drops and making this is going to be enough wire working for me for tonight. I do have a few other things I need to work on. I'm going to be finishing up and editing a wire weaving tutorial that you guys should see either tonight or tomorrow morning. And tomorrow I'm going to be doing some painting, so that should be fun. All right, a few more of these guys. Yeah, I think this champagne color is perfect for this. It's a good wire color. There we go. So that's halfway done. Let's string up the other side. think I love it. I think I love it. Sorry, sometimes you have to stop and admire your work, y'all. It's important. It's an important step in the creation process to stop and admire your work. There we go. For a minute there, I wasn't sure if that would actually go through or not. All right. All right, we got our stuff all done here. So I may actually be cutting off quite a bit of this pearlesque pipe chain in order for this to hang right on here, because I want this to hang about there on this. So if I cut it off about there, then I'll actually have plenty of this left for earrings. I think I might use it in the earrings then. All right. I just made a small change of plans for what I had planned. I was just gonna have that be there. So let me. All right. So what I'm gonna need is the crimp is gonna go there. There's gonna be a little loop there, and then this will end up right there. All right. I'm gonna cut this and then measure the other side of it to match. There we go. Now I will use these in some earring design. Yes, perfect. All right. First things first, let's get the end on that chain. I'm just widening that, making sure that this is going to be facing the correct way. Put that in as much as possible. And squeeze down. Okay. And I'm going to do that on the other side too. Widen that a little bit. Make sure that that is facing the right way. Those little leftover bits from when I cut it out of the way. Come on, buddy. There we go. All the way in. Ellen, you're fine. Promise you, you're fine. All right. Now, let's get this crimped onto here. Again, I'm using 2x2 crimp tubes and my magical crimper, which is right here. So we put the crimp tube on, put it through the connector, and then back through the crimp. This is the wire I'm talking about. We're going to put the wire back through. Then once the wire is in a place where I want it to be, I'm going to use my magical crimper and crimp it. And if you've never seen this before, that's too fudge. There's this concavity on the inside of here. So what you do is you center this crimp. And this is the reason why it only works with 2x2 crimp tubes, is because when you do that and you squeeze down, it presses down the edges of that crimp tube. And then you can rotate it and press down again. And then rotate it and press down again. And each time you do this, it smooshes down those edges a little bit more and makes it nice and smooth. So what you end up being left with is a nice, smooth, round little ball of crimp holding your wire together. All right, will this wire go through here twice? It will not, so I'm gonna go ahead and snip it right next to the crimp. Okay. There we go. Now I have this on the other side. Yeah, I turned this around. I'm going to need to straighten this out so that it is not wonky on me when it's being worn. There we go. There we go. Interesting. All right. Sorry about that. I was straightening this out because it was all twisty and curvy and going the wrong way. And now I think I have it straightened out the right way. Let's go ahead and cut that wire. Put the crimp tube on. Put it through the connector. And then back through the crimp. I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the other side. This time I'm going to try and make sure that this is the same amount of space on my loop, but that there's enough space for the necklace to not be too tight on that. All right, and now I can do the same thing. I can crimp it. You also want to make sure that there is space between the crimp and the bead next to it so that you don't A, crush the bead, and B, so you can get that crimp centered in that divot in the middle of your crimper. You might have to adjust your angle a little bit to get around it, but then once you're done, you'll have a nice little round ball of crimp that you don't need to put a crimp cover on. I like not having to do that. All right, now I've got my necklace pretty much done. I'm just gonna need to connect my clasp on there. And then we'll make some earrings in a minute. I think the earrings might be kind of a little more fun than I was originally intending, because I'm going to be using some of this for it too. Alright, so now I've got this. Just a jump ring through the loop. I'm going to close that up. This is really fun. Now there are some other SilverSilk products that are available at Sam's Bead Shop that will go with this bead box. I was using some from my stash, but they've got this really lovely like white pipe chain with gold on the outside that would also look really gorgeous with this. That's available for sale. I'll put a link to Sam's Bead Shop on the page that they have for this bead box. If you go down to the bottom, you'll see like the bead mixes, you'll see the pipe chain, you'll see some beading wire trios that they've curated with soft flex. They've got a bunch of stuff that you can get in addition to the bead box to step it up a notch. Oh my gosh, I love it. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be a really nice little layered necklace. Look, all right, let's move this guy aside and get out our bits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I need 6 of them for each earring. I've got this guy. Maybe I am going to need this guy on a head pin too. Now that I have changed my mind about how I'm going to be designing this. So let's make a head pin for him. I'm just going to make a little loop right here at the top of it. I don't think this needs to be beautiful. Now, going to make a hoop. How am I going to have these guys attached? Maybe some jump rings. All right, let's try. Let's try my 6mm jump rings. If these are too small, I will find some larger jump rings. Let's see. I know. Perfect. It's perfect. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach these jump rings to each of these drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't need that extra one. And then I'm going to slide the jump rings onto my pipe chain, and then I'm going to use more of my 20 gauge craft wire, and I'm going to turn it into a hoop with these dangling along the bottom. But I'm going to go help Ellen out real quick first, and when I come back, we'll take care of that. All right, so I've got 2 pipe chain ends. I have all of my drops. I put them onto the jump rings first, and then once they were closed, I slid them onto my pipe chain. And now I'm going to pull off some craft wire, and I want enough craft wire that it will go all the way through, but also give me enough wire on either end for some wire wrapping. So I'm going to take the same length as this plus about 4 inches more. And that's what I'm going to be using for my wire wrapping. All right. And up here on one end, I'm going to go ahead and just make myself a simple loop. Just right here on this end. And then I can form everything else based on like its distance from that simple loop. There we go, making that simple loop. And since I'm going to be doing some wrapping after I do this, I'm going to just give myself some room to wrap and bend that right there. Right there at the very, very tip of that. And that way I can use the rest of this to make my hoop, to go through my pipe chain, to come back around, make a little loop for this guy, and then wrap around this for my earring. So again, I'm just starting it off with a simple loop, and then about 1 centimeter of space underneath there where I've made a little bend over to the side. Now I can put on one of these pipe chain ends, and then carefully, so you don't lose your dangles, let's just string my pipe chain onto my wire. Make sure this cord end goes over the pipe chain. Slide that right up there. And then I'm going to want this on the other end. All right, if that is pointing up, let's bend this around to the other side. There we go. It's just going to make a little circle. And you can use your fingers to make it more circle shaped if you need to, if you want to. You can make it pear shaped. You could make it square. I would suggest forming it around something though if you wanted to make it square. But yeah, you can do any shape that you want. So I'm just going to, now that I'm crossing this over here, pushing against this back part and then pushing with my thumb around this direction so that this comes between both ends of my pipe chain. I'm just going to give it a little bend so it comes up this way. So you can see this wire goes around up and through. And I'm going to take this little drop that I made with the flower bead, scooch that right there, and grab that with the round nose pliers. Give that a good bend right up. That way there'll be a little round part down here. And then come over here to the side. And now I'm going to wrap around here. Wrap up to where my simple loop is. And then I can either cut it there or I can wrap back down. Make a nice fat wrap. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. Just keep going way back down. And you can adjust that roundness and size and all that fun stuff if you want. Actually, I think I'm going to make it more drop shaped. Let's make it a little more drop shaped. There we go. All right, I've got this wire sticking out the back. Cut that off. Do this thing like that. And now all I have to do is attach an ear wire. And I have an earring to go with my necklace that I made with the Chateau and Bloom Sam's bead box and some fancy silk one-off chain that I had laying around in my stash. Anyway, I will put a link to the SilverSilk. I'll put a link to the Sam's bead shop, and hopefully I will talk with you later. Bye.